And 10% is a long way from 2%, the 10% annual increase they got. So the point is, we live in an inflationary environment now, in my opinion. I think the average person, the average investor, I still encounter this a great deal, feels like stocks are the place to be. They know we live in an inflationary world, and the way you hedge that is stocks. And stocks have slightly outperformed gold over long periods of time. And stocks do represent claims on businesses that throw off, earnings and dividends. And so the stocks aren't bad per se when they're appropriately priced relative to what you're buying. The problem is that the stock market right now is at, historic highs on any metric you want to use, the Buffett indicator, whatever. It looks like 2000 or 1929. And so you're not getting everyone's in that stock bet already. They've already made that bet. And so there's not, it's fully priced, in my opinion. There's not a lot of upside in it. And I think what happened in 2020 and changed is that we went from a 40-year period of deflation where, interest rates were coming down, driven by a lot of things, driven by all Jeff Booth's stuff about technology and so on and so forth, and the China price. But we went from that period and it got ridiculous. I mean, we had $18 trillion of negative yielding bonds. I mean, that's about as deflationary as you can get when you have to pay somebody to hold, to hold your money. I mean, come on. So that it was just extreme, right? I mean, the 10-year was at 50 basis points in March of 2020. And so bottom line is that reversed, in my opinion, violently. When we had the COVID event and the 40% growth in the money supply. And so, and history shows that you really can't put inflation back in the bottle very easily, that once it gets started, it kind of tends to continue because everybody wants their piece of it. I mean, a good example of this is, we're supposed to be aiming for a 2% target, right? Well, the dock workers, the longshoremen went out on strike last fall in October. They got a 6-year contract with a 60% increase in their wages. That's 10% a year for 6 years. All right. 10% a year for 6 years. So, I mean, that basically what that shows you is that when labor and how were they able to get that? They were able to get that, one, because they had a union, a lot of power. They fought all the automation of the ports, et cetera. But more importantly, they had just been screwed. I mean, they'd had a 40% increase in the money supply. And so suddenly whatever they were making bought 40% less goods and services. And so they were pissed, and they had the power, and they went and they demanded this higher rate. Well, okay, that higher rate, fine, they get it, and I get it. I get why they got it. But the point is, that's going to flow through to every single piece of goods and services that comes through those ports. And it's locked in for 6 years. So, and 10% is a long way from 2%, the 10% annual increase they got. So the point is, we live in an inflationary environment now, in my opinion. And because of the math, and I've laid this out in detail in my book, and it, and Lynn Alden has done a great job laying it out as well, with her "nothing stops this train" meme on how the government spending is out of control. And we can get to Doge in a minute. But, because of the math, they really have to keep the system inflated and inflating, or else it collapses. I mean, it's like, inflate or die is kind of the mantra. Holding on to your coins makes sense. Putting it into the real estate makes no sense, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I mean, my kids are in their 20s. They can't buy housing, and they're doing fine. They're making good money. But yeah, the system is, but that'll get re-equilibrated. I mean, as this change that I'm describing takes place, the monetary premium in housing will go away. And those who decided to hold Bitcoin versus housing will be able to buy plenty of house, in a few years. You're already starting to see that. I mean, housing prices are soft all over the place. So, and I suspect they're going to get much, much softer. So you're going to be able to buy your house, but it's obviously in the shorter term, I would advise anyone who's young right now to rent, not buy. Because I think on a relative basis, I mean, I'm sure you've seen, in fact, I had it in the book. I'm sure you've seen that meme that shows how many Bitcoin it took to buy a house, right? Where the average housing price has gone up substantially, but the number of Bitcoin necessary to buy a house has gone down substantially, for the past 15 years. So look, Bitcoin is honest money driven by math. And, it's the most honest form of money mankind's ever had because there's no dilution in it. Even gold gets diluted at 1.7% a year. And the book has a whole chapter. I mean, where the title of the chapter is "Sound Money is a Moral Issue." And it really is true. I mean, there's a lot of history to support that. I mean, people in the Bible, this is thousands of years ago, they were writing about honest weights and measures because the history of people messing with the monetary system to try and get advantage. This has been around for a long, long, long time. Fiat currency has abused a lot of people over many, many years. This isn't some new problem. It's kind of new and acute right now, getting more acute, post 1971, and as we go into this whole cycle. But I think what'll happen is, the broken money like we have, fiat money like we have, leads to fiat sort of behavior, gambling and bad morals and not thinking about the long term, and just kind of spending your seed corn and cheating to get as much as you can as quick as you can because you really don't care about tomorrow. Whereas sound money people very much believe in investing and being patient, and you plant a seed for a tree and you watch it grow, and you don't chop the tree down just to get the wood when it's a couple years old. I mean, and so to me, money is all about kind of reaping and sowing. I mean, you've got to reap savings, and then ultimately you'll sow the benefit of those savings. Of course, you won't if you're saving in fiat terms, because the government's going to rob you.